Hello, I'm Reverend Rick, and it is my honor to be with you today. We really hope that this video is a blessing to you. And if it is, please consider making a donation. People watch our videos locally when they cannot necessarily come to church throughout the United States and the world. So please join us and click the link below and make a donation. Thank you, and let this be a blessing to you.
Let us prepare ourselves and put your hand over your eyes. I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today.
I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today.
And over your ears to hear the spiritual truth today.
I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today.
And now extend your heart over your heart and then extend your arms out. I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today.
I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today.
The spiritual truth that I'm working with today is that your divine birthright is aliveness. Your divine birthright is aliveness. That kind of aliveness that you know is there when you wake up in the morning and you think it's going to be a great day. That kind of aliveness that you know, and you know that no thing and no person can stand in your way of joy. No person, no thing can stand in your way of deep and authentic connection with other people. You know, that's what we really want, is deep and authentic connection with other people in our life. That aliveness that says, I can walk into a room anywhere on the planet and know that it's filled with love and filled with people who are happy to see you. That's the kind of aliveness that I'm talking about. That aliveness that understands, either through spiritual study of spiritual principle or through your gut. You know, some people, and you know them, you know somebody in your life who just knows, without any study, without any formal training, that life is good, that they're alive. They just know that. And yet there are other people who are learning about this idea of aliveness through new revelations of scientific discovery. They understand that God is on the job 24/7, and everything that you want or need has already been given to you in your life. So why? Why is it that if that's true, that we walk around with only fleeting moments of that feeling of aliveness? Why do we walk around so often like feeling like we're not enough for this thing or that thing? Why do we walk around so often thinking that we have to throw up a wall of protection around ourselves? The reason why we do that is because some wonderful people in our life, and I mean wonderful people in our life, have set up this false idea of outside protections, limitations, a set of limitations that we have in our life in order to keep us safe and in order to keep us well behaved. They thought that in order for us to be good little boys and girls, we needed to have these limitations set on ourselves. Now, I've been a parent, I'm a parent, I know that you have to have children who are, you know, well-mannered. You want to teach them that, but sometimes we've gone too far. And sometimes our parents have gone too far in setting this idea of limitations up, and it's caused us to feel like we're not good enough. We're not enough in our life. Well, in this process of socializing us, because that's what that is, that's setting the external limitations, is simply a process of socializing us. In this process of socializing us, we were introduced to the egoic state, to the ego. Now, I want to make sure that we understand ego is not bad. Ego is not bad. What we're talking, and there's so many definitions of ego on the planet in this culture, we're going to stick to this one definition that I like, which is attachment to form. That's what your ego is. It's your attachment to form. It's not the form itself, it's the attachment to how things have to look. It's the attachment that says dancers' bodies should look like this. Funerals should look like this. Now, if you're coming on the 8th to Carmen Wadley's funeral, you're going to see this funeral is going to be way different. This memorial service is going to be a hot celebration of her joy and her life. It doesn't look like anything else. But when we have an attachment, we have a attachment to what music a violin should play. It should only play this kind of music. We have attachment to what a sacred reading should be. It shouldn't be anything like we saw this morning. When we have attachment to form, then we know that we're in our egoic state in our life. Now here's the thing. Attachment to form. All form is conditional and transitional. It moves. All form moves. It changes all the time. And when we're attached to how it looks and it changes, we're often left robbed by our peace. Divorce happens. Pink slips happen. Diagnosis happen. And when we're attached to the form of what those things look like, what happens is our peace is robbed from us. We're not happy anymore. We can't feel that aliveness that is our divine birthright. Because what will happen in a little time goes by, and then we get a new job that's better than the job we just lost. We find a cure for our diagnosis. We find a better marriage than the one we had before, and then we're happy again. But it's a fragile, fleeting happiness because things are changing all the time. When we're attached to the form's not bad. We want you to be happy in your marriages. Marriage form is a great form. You know, all those forms are good forms. We want you to not be so attached to them that when they change, you become devastated. Your peace is stolen from us. See, our work is to begin to rely less on what's out there and more on what's in here. Less on our ego state, that attachment to form, and more on spirit that works inside of us. But here's a hint. It'll go much faster if you don't get mad at your ego. If you don't start running around smashing, I'm going to smash my ego. I hear that sometimes in religious circles. There's nothing to smash. Your ego is good. It has served you well and will continue to serve you well. But it changes. It means that you don't get so attached. You know, nobody showed up here. Your ego is kind of like your old-fashioned clothes. You have to change with it. Nobody showed up here in bell-bottoms or an afro out to here. Nobody did that. None of that is bad, but we changed with the times. Now we want you to change with your new spiritual principles that you're learning about. So how is it that we got here, that we're so attached to our form? By thinking less, by thinking more and remembering less, by thinking more and remembering less. That's how we get to the place of disengaging from our ego, from our attachment to form, by remembering who you were when you got here. When you got here as a little blob on the planet, you knew it all, and you knew how to work it too. You cried somebody did something about it in your life. That's what we need to begin to do. We need to begin to go back to that place where we knew everything was going to be okay in our life. Ekhart Tolle, who many of you have read his book, The New Earth, or you've seen him on Oprah, or you've heard him on interview shows. He wrote a book called A New Earth, and in the new book, The New Earth, he introduced us to the concept of pain bodies. So what is a pain body? A pain body is an energy field of very old and recent emotional pain. A pain body is an energy field that is within you of your old pain, your old emotional pain. What is emotional pain? It's that reaction you have in your body to what's going on the outside. So for instance, you know, if you hear of a car being stolen, you don't have much of a reaction to that in your body. But if you find out it's your car being stolen, you have a big reaction of it in your body. And you know that place in your body, I think Esther talked about it last week, where her body of pain was in her stomach, and other people have talked about it in their shoulders, or some in their head or their neck. We all have a place where our pain bodies are stored in our life. Think of a sack, and every negative comment that was ever made to you in your life, you simply put it in the sack. So somebody said you're a little too heavy, you put it in the sack. Somebody said you're too sensitive, you put it in the sack. Somebody said you're not sensitive enough, you put it in the sack. Somebody says you're I don't know, whatever they said to you. My mother would always say, you're like a bull in a china closet. I'm still working to get that out of my sack. See? But here's the thing with your pain body, the sack. Everywhere you go, that sack goes with you. Everywhere you go, your pain body is accompanying to you. And so you go to an interview, your pain body goes with you. You don't need it in that interview, but it's there. Unless it's cleared out, it's there. You go on a date, pain body goes with you. You go to your parents' anniversary dinner, your pain body goes with you. Everywhere you go, you take that pain body with you. And it will impact how you see the world and how the world sees you in your life. So we have to, so how do we dump our pain body? How do we do that? We train ourselves. Train ourselves. See, it's not enough to come here on Sunday and just hear it. Not enough to know about it. You have to know it. Knowing about something and knowing something are two different things. That's why the classes are so important. That's why continued reading and study and getting different ideas from different people is so important, because that's how we begin to train ourselves to trust in the guiding force that will help us to release the pain bodies. You know, there's a term that we use a lot, may the force be with you. We need to change that. May you be with the force. That's what we need to do. We have to be with the force all the time. And to be with the force, we have to begin to understand the force. Because the force will not only help you empty your pain body sack so that when you go to these things like interviews and dates and other places, you're taking the magnificent you, not the hurt you, not the you that's trying to protect themselves from anybody that might get to you in your life. So how do you do that? Well, again, you train yourself. One of the things that that I'm doing is reading a book called The Luminous Life by Jacob Liberman. Jacob Liberman is going to come here, and he is one of the people like Joe Dispenza. Many of us in this community are Joe Dispenza fans. Jacob Liberman is leading the way in a similar way to help us understand the power of science behind what's going on the planet. His whole mission is to unveil a heightened consciousness, and a heightened consciousness is what will make you a healer in your life. A heightened consciousness through scientific discovery. You know, many of us in this church, including myself, we love Jesus. We love Jesus. But there are some of us, including myself at some times, when we say, you know, these miracles that Jesus did, perhaps they're allegory. Perhaps they didn't really happen. Maybe they're just stories to help us understand the way. But what if they weren't true? What if it was true that you could help a cripple walk, a blind man see, turn water into wine? Would you be willing to learn more about how to do that if you thought that was true? Well, Jacob Liberman is an optometrist. He started out as an optometrist. He's gone on to do many advanced studies, but he started as an optometrist, and he began to look at this idea of consciousness and healing, and he began to study it. And as he studied it, he healed his own vision. And then when he healed his own vision and he studied it some more, he began to heal his patient's vision. How? Through consciousness, through the presence. Now here's what he calls the presence. He calls the presence that moment when that which you are seeking and is seeking you come together. You've heard me say from this pulpit often that which you are seeking is also seeking you. He says that when that comes together, when that converges, when that intersects, that which you're seeking and that which is seeking you intersects, that's the presence. That's the moment that you become the ultimate healer in your life. So our work is to know how to get there. You know, in the New Testament, in John 1:5, it describes God as light. God as light. Well, Liberman began his work to look at light as healing energy. light as healing energy. Now, we're not talking about electric light here. We're not even talking, if I asked you, where is the light? You would all turn around and you'd point to the window and you'd say, there's the light out there. That's not the kind of light he's talking about. What he's talking about is that light is the result of light. He calls that brightness. The brightness is the result of light, and it has healing properties, but it's not light itself. Light is formless. Like God is formless, so is light. So he begins to work with this, knowing that if he can understand how light works in our life scientifically, then we can begin to understand how to guide us to our next steps and release the pain bodies. So I want to read you a little bit from his book. At daybreak, a large lake in the island of Palau in the Philippine Sea, a dance begins. Millions of golden jellyfish, each the size of a teacup, race toward the light of the rising sun. Once they reach the sun's early morning rays, they stop. Then slowly, as the sun makes its way to the east, the jellies follow to its arc. At dusk, these unique invertebrates come to rest on the lake's western shore. The following morning, the dance begins again. The jellies are just one of countless species whose life journeys are guided by the sun's light. According to marine biologists, humpback whales use sunlight along with the stars and the Earth's magnetic pull to guide their 10,000-mile yearly migrations. Despite ocean currents, the whales swim in a straight line, north to feed and south to mate, varying less than 1 degree longitude from year to year by following the light. Many of you remember the tsunami that happened in Sri Lanka and India, parts of India, in about 2004, I think. And just before that tsunami happened, all of the domestic and wild animals took to high ground. When the tsunami hit, there were very few animals that died in that tsunami. Over 150,000 people died. Very few animals. Because they had 20/20 foresight. And the problem is we erroneously believe that the animals have a sixth sense, but we don't. Animals have the same 20/20 foresight that you and I have. What's the difference? They don't outthink their pull. They don't outthink the force, the guiding force. They let the guiding force do the guiding force's work through recognizing the power of light. Now, I am the first to admit I don't understand everything that he's talked about, but I do know that we as a culture and a human race, we get kind of the power of light. In fact, we talk about it all the time. When we see a pregnant woman, don't we often say, she's glowing? When we see somebody very smart, we say, that person is brilliant. When we have a flash of a new idea, don't we say we got an insight? When we change a belief system, don't we say that we have seen the light? When we have a new idea, we say the bulb went off. You know, I can guarantee you, those who have signed up with foundations, I will know the minute the bulbs go off in your head. I see it every time I do foundations. We say the bulb went off. When somebody is upset, don't we tell them to lighten up? Here's the thing. If we could have our trust match our language, we might become the healers that Jesus was in this life. Now, I want to remember, we're not talking about brightness. We're talking about the power of light in this world. So, Reverend Georgia, why go to all the trouble of talking about light if what you're really talking about is God? Because for many of us in this room and that are attracted to churches like this, we believe that faith is an active belief in God. See, that's what we think faith is. We have to, our faith is kind of wobbly. I believe in God. If you come to me and say, do you believe in God? I'm going to say, absolutely, until I'm afraid. And then my trust in God is not so strong. Until I'm insecure. And then my trust in God is not so strong. And I know there are plenty of people in this room who really don't want me to talk about God. Will you please stop talking about God? I get emails. Couldn't you use another word? Well, no, I can't. I tried. But I can't. But for those of you who want a scientific basis for the guiding force, I want to make sure that you come. We're going to have him here. You have an awesome board of trustees, by the way. Yeah. So I went to the board of trustees and I said, could I have a lot of money to bring a guy here that probably nobody knows? And they said, okay. After a little talk, they said, okay. So we're going to bring this guy here. I couldn't get him here on a Sunday, so you have to come on a Thursday night. His name is Jacob Liberman. This is a Science of Mind magazine. He's pictured here with Joe, and he's the one who's... This guy will help us. I read this book carefully, and I can't understand all of the concepts in it, but I know he's going to help. So I'm assuming, tickets are $30, they're out there in the lobby right now. I'm assuming you can give up enough Starbucks to come and hear Jacob Liberman, because wouldn't it be worth $30 to find out how to use the sun, how to use the light to heal yourself and other people? You know, I practice this, the limited knowledge that I have of it, I practice this. Don and I went on a cruise to Alaska, and I'm not a big cruiser. It's not my favorite mode of transportation because there are 3,800 people on the ship, and yeah, no golf course either, but 3,800 people is a lot of people. And of course, like all of us, we bring our dysfunction, our family dysfunction. You know, we've got family reunions coming on the ship, and so, and I'm very susceptible to hearing other people squabble. I try not to, but I am. And so there were several times when I thought, oh man, 6 more days, 5 more days, 4 more days. But I loved it, honey. We're going here. Do you ever have someone with your partner where they love it? Oh, this is the best. It's great. 3 more days. But anyway, so to help myself, I thought, well, look, I've got this guy's book here. He's got the solution. So I would do that. I would go out onto the deck and I would just face the sun. And I would say, I need something. And every day I got more compassion. Without faith, I could feel it innerly. Simply by turning to the light and allowing my faith in the guiding force to take me where it is that I need to go in my life. So, for those of you who want to know more about science and how the science of God actually, you know, we call it ancient wisdom, and now we have modern technique to support ancient. It's not any different. I'm telling you, it's not any different than what Jesus told us. But it's done now with scientific backing. So I hope you come. I hope you come to that. But to achieve your divine birthright, getting back to your divine birthright, you need to be able to do 2 things. One is to learn how to use this method. The second one is you have to be willing to give up your identity with your pain body. You have to be willing to say, okay, I'm going to release it. And by releasing it, I mean you're releasing your identity. So many of us have an identity, a chokehold on what's happened to us. He tells a story in a book about a woman who came to him who was cross-eyed. She was a middle-aged woman. She was cross-eyed since birth. And because she was cross-eyed, she couldn't read. And she also, it affected her ambulation. And she came to him, and he was able to work both optometrically and in consciousness to solve her problem. Now she continued to be cross-eyed, but now she can see 20/20, and she could walk easy, she could read, she could do it. Same thing, different language. Thinking, well, maybe this will solve it. And so he tells her, oh no, I've done that too. Well, it wasn't two, because it was the same thing, but I've done that too. And so the guy, he says, I guess you can't fix me. And the chiropractor says, look, I could fix you, but the problem is, once I fix you, you're not going to have anything else to talk about. We have to be careful that we don't have such a chokehold on our identity with our maladies that we can't move forward in our life. Let's take this message. Knowing that there's only